Greetings, I am Erin Patten, metaphysical master in a millennial age, and it is my life's purpose to guide you and organizations along an enlightened path. So I invite you to sit comfortably and tune in as I welcome you to the Meta Business Millennial, where we get the real conversations you won't get in the boardroom so that we understand this is exactly the path we need to be on in order to grow, evolve, and thrive. Greetings, y'all. I am Erin Patten, also known as Master L, and welcome to today's very special live episode of the Meta Business Millennial podcast. We are live across all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and I'm always just so happy to be with you guys today, every day, every week, showing up for myself, showing up for you. And if you haven't already, I invite you to like this video, subscribe to my channel, leave me a comment. I love to hear from you guys. I've been so just blown away by the intelligence, the depth, the clarity for which you guys are seeing me. And I want you to continue to engage with me, whether it be in comments or DMs. I really appreciate that. And so I see some of you all have already joined the room. Hey, y'all. Hey, I'm so happy to see you guys. And I'm really, 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 really excited to get into today's topic because it is unique and for me, and also unique for you guys, for me to talk about. First of all, like Black women. I know that I just kind of shifted into this new focus at the end of last year and really wanting to dive into conversations, activities, topics that are meaningful to us. And today's topic is meaningful to me, and I know meaningful to a lot of ladies, Black ladies, especially women of color out there, especially because it has to do fundamentally with unrealistic beauty standards. And we live in a day and age of Instagram, of boomerangs, of taking a picture everywhere we go at all times of the day. And there is, I believe, unnecessary and intense pressure to show up beautifully all the time. And as much as we want to be like Beyonce and be like, I woke up like this, like I woke up like this, it's not the truth. And many times, not only do we not wake up like this, but how we show up is, unique, put it that way. And so I just want to get into essentially what I see as the problem, if you will, around unrealistic beauty standards. And there are a few things, because I know that generally beauty standards, whether it's, we're going to get into colorism, we're going to get into good hair, bad, good hair, nappy hair. All of these things essentially further divide and destroy the Black community fundamentally. That's first and foremost why I want to bring it up, because everything that I talk about in the Meta Business Millennial, everything that I stand for is about healing. And if we aren't discussing the aspects of our culture, of our existence that detract from happiness, that detract from joy, that detract from feeling secure in our being, then we need to talk about those things. And generally, when we're talking about these unrealistic beauty standards, they absolutely steal our joy. I don't know any woman, especially not a Black woman, that hasn't criticized her hair, that hasn't talked about her nails or her body or some aspect of her being that steals her joy. So this essentially divides and destroys our community. And essentially, when we start to talk about some of these other aspects, particularly when we get into the colorism, this essentially is taking on the oppressor's mind, if you will. So we're really falling victim to the prejudices that are created by other people. Okay, so this is really wanting to extract and take us out of that victim mindset, which really keeps us in this inferiority complex, this minority position, if you will. And we want to be able to, especially as Black women, release those shackles and be free and be sovereign and be majority. God damn it, like be, not necessarily superior, because we're all in many ways on a path together collectively. So we just want to not feel inferior to anyone because we all are showing up in our truth at all times. And even further, when we're not showing up in our truth, we're internalizing these struggles and we self sabotage. And that self sabotage shows up in so many ways. It shows up in overeating. It shows up in over drinking. It shows up in over sexing. It shows up in, not doing well in our work. It shows up in not doing well in areas of our lives. So we want to make sure that we're not internalizing the trauma and making it our own. And so with that, I really want to start jumping into some clips because I really have found that the clips make this show much more interesting. It makes conversation more juicy, and it really gives us an opportunity to see into what the greater landscape of the conversations are around. And so this first video I'm going to get into is around colorism, particularly from men, Black men. And I believe that this is in many ways what perpetuates the desire to change alter our image because we want to please a man and we want to be chosen by a man and wifed up and all those things. And so we really want to be desirable to men. And so and there's nothing wrong with that in my view. I mean, I think that's quite normal. So this is particular men's perspective. I wouldn't say it's every man's perspective, but is it a perspective worth viewing? So let's have a look at this.
I mean, Abria, I ain't never like looked at a dark skin and was like, she kind of, you know what I'm saying, right?
She pressure.
She right to be a dark skin.
But she bad.
All right, Abria, bro, you not ugly, you know what I'm saying? I rate Abria like a.
But I ain't gonna lie. I never talked to a dark skin.
Yeah, me too. That's what I'm saying. Like, Abria, she not ugly, bro. Abria, you can get like I give Abria 8.
I was finna say 8.
8.
But like, she not ugly. It's just that I never seen myself talking to a dark skin before. But I ain't never seen no good nigga.
Okay, y'all. So this really hit my heart. Like I feel a little pain in my heart when I watch that because it's just sheer ignorance around people and how we show up and what we look like. And, it's painful to watch and see and hear because these are deal breakers for a relationship, but deal breakers about something that women can't change about themselves, or even men can't change about themselves, the color of their skin. And so to further kind of elucidate this mindset, if you will, I want to play another clip from a woman to get a woman's perspective, if you will, around the very same topic.
When I saw that video, I got kind of sad because I was like, wow, like she is the Black beauty standard, like literally what Black people are like want to look like. And I was like, I don't know. It was just sad because like I know that I won't look like that ever. Like I can never like change my hair texture or like my skin color, all these things. And like I know I'm really like I'm gonna love. No, I'm missing a nail. I'm gonna love me and I'm gonna like love my skin and my hair and all these things. But I'm just kind of like, how nice would life be if I just looked like the Black beauty standard? Like how much better would my life?
Exactly. How much better would her life be if she looked like the typical, what we saw in this almost like mixed race looking woman? And so I know that this is still kind of contentious and taboo a little bit and uncomfortable for people to talk about, but this is a real conversation that we need to be having around how we show up and understanding how to love ourselves in our beingness. And yeah, so when we're talking about this beauty standard, it really reflects back to very simply self-hate. And if we're not liking another Black person because of the shade of their Blackness, there couldn't be anything more obvious than a self-hate there, if you will. And the self-hate can come in many forms. Like, yes, there's the colorism. There's also the social status, the wealth status, the growing up in the hood and the projects versus growing up in a middle class professional family versus, in a very elite family. There have been things that said, someone mentioned to me that, Bernie Sanders made this quote that there's much more in common between like a poor Black person and a poor white person than a poor Black person and a wealthy Black person. So, and I know this to be true from my own experience, and I'll get into much more of my personal experience much more in depth in a little bit. But just even growing up, I grew up in Third Ward in Houston, and I loved my upbringing. I loved my community so much, but it was very, very bifurcated. Actually, my mom grew up in Third Ward too. She grew up in the CUNY homes, which essentially are the projects of Third Ward, and my dad grew up in the lower Third Ward. The bottoms is what they call now, which is more or less like where the row houses were, the really small kind of gunshot style houses. And so where my parents came from, that area very much still existed in Third Ward. And there was still a lot of poverty and violence and drugs in those areas. My grandmother lived in the CUNY homes her whole life. So I would stay in my home on Southmore near McGregor and in a very professional middle-class Black area, and then spend my weekends or weeknights in the CUNY homes and the projects with my grandmother. And to be able to have that, if you will, in the same, literally walking distance, nearly distance away from each other, to have those two different experiences in the same community, it was very stark and very shocking, especially how even Black people would look at other Black people in ghetto communities. And so I'm saying all this to say that there is a lot of a self-hate that exists right now in our community, growing up in our community, that has to be looked at, explored, and in many ways healed. And so in addition to that experience of like going back and forth between the projects or the middle class, and then obviously being bused to white schools. Like I'm saying obvious, like y'all know, but I mean, I did go to Harvard. So I went to some of the best schools here in Houston. I went to T.H. Rogers, a Vanguard school. I went to Lamar High School, IB program school. And so I very much was the only one in most of my classes. And so there also is this, if you will, this distinction between the educated Black person, which is very much still kind of the social status thing, and the not so educated, if you will. And education is very subjective in this conversation, because education can look like going to, like these white schools and talking white, and because that's a thing, and talking proper and showing up, educated, and going after things that are, going after professional jobs and trying to go to college. And then there is this pursuit of the opposite, which is the streets, if you will. And the street culture very much represents the Black culture. And I hope to talk about this more, the street culture aspect, because it runs very rampant through media, through music, especially in terms of representing Black culture. And I have to say, growing up, and seeing rap videos and seeing the hood and talking about, rapping about growing up in the projects, I very much identified with this as Blackness and the struggle, and that there had to be some sort of struggle in order to identify with being Black, and that getting through school and getting good grades and making money and talking well and eating at good restaurants somehow wasn't Black. That makes sense. And that was really a mindset that I started to take on. And I'm sure a lot of other people, which created even more division and divisiveness in our own community. And so we're talking about colorism, we're talking about beauty standards, we're talking about education, and all the things that further divide us as Black people in our own community. And so I want to dive a little bit deeper on the beauty piece, because the beauty, the colorism, the beauty, how we show up has really taken a toll, I believe, on Black women financially. And I'm saying financially because we're going to get into the emotional piece, we're going to get into the spiritual piece, but I want to start to lay out all the different ways in which we are impacted by and affected by our thinking and our mindsets. And there's one thing that I want to lift up that's called the pink tax. And I actually just learned about this when I was prepping for this podcast because I really wanted to understand the financial implications of women getting plastic surgery or women spending a lot of money on beauty products or altering their hair or whatnot. And the pink tax, just to define, is not always intentional, but is often a result of marketing strategies that exploit gender stereotypes and the perception that women are willing to pay more for beauty products, specific products. And to get into the statistics, women pay 13% more for personal care products than men do. So men paid 13% more for products like razors, shampoos, deodorants, and as compared to men. And over a lifetime, this pink tax can cost women over $80,000, depending on their spending habits and depending on their lifespan, of course. And so when we're talking about the pink tax, in many ways, since this is the Meta Business Millennial, I like to also look at the industry of beauty and how, in many ways, the business industry is capitalizing on our very malleable and manipulated mindset around how we look and how we show up. So, I mean, when we're talking about beauty products, I'm talking about everything from like lightening creams to relaxers. I mean, even though my hair's not relaxed, but it's blown out. But I'm just showing you like the hair dyes, the colors, the makeups, the beauty products, the razors, the shampoos, the deodorants. All these things are regular. We're in our view, for women especially, regular products that we have to consume to actually maintain a normal standard of upkeep. Not even of beauty. This is like a regular standard how I show up to work, not how I show up to a date, which would take me to another level. Then we're talking about getting a facial or getting waxed or getting my hair extra did, so getting my nails extra done. So these are the pink tax essentially is taking a financial toll on women, particularly Black women, when you start talking about wigs and weaves and braids. I mean, the prices are astronomical, y'all. Like the amount I pay for hairstyles and things like that, it really is consuming, not just around the sort of the emotional and spiritual and how we show up, but the financial aspect of how we show up, the physical aspect of how we show up. And just to dive a little bit deeper into the beauty aspect and the harm that it's causing in our community, I want to bring up this video from Little Kim. So Little Kim, a legendary woman rapper in the hip hop industry since the 90s. She was a huge influence on me as a young girl and was very beautiful, very spicy, very intelligent, outgoing. And the way she has altered her appearance over the years is downright scary and sad in my heart. I mean, I'm sure she's choosing, of course, to make these alterations. However, in my view, they're completely unnecessary. And, in my view, really stimulated and influenced by, of course, Hollywood standards, how she should be showing up in media. And then that, of course, her own insecurity around how she looked and how she used to show up. So let me just show y'all this video of how she's sort of grown or evolved over the years.
They focus and the dopest, like a penny with a hole in it. Y'all just hopeless and hopeless. I ain't lying, trying to knock me off. Keep trying. All it takes is one phone call to my street team. Promote that ass like a soundtrack. You jack, sit there, send it off with the 850. Y'all missing the buck with the bump. Biggie in the truck, in the buck to my double.
Mm-hmm. So as y'all can see, not only did her skin color change, her nose size changed, her lips changed, the shape of her face changed, her hair changed, her body changed, her breast changed, her booty changed, her waist changed. Everything about this woman is completely different than how she started. And it's actually quite normal in the music industry today. I would say almost every female rapper has altered their body in some way that is really famous today. And we talked about it a little bit before last week on the sort of hypersexualization of Black women in media. And literally at least all of them have a boob job, if not also a BBL. And this is not in any way judging or disrespecting what we have in terms of the breast augmentation or the BBLs. It's just looking at what it is and why we're doing it. Because everything that we have to understand as Black women and coming back to ourselves is our purpose and our why. Why do we want to look this way? Do we feel like we're going to attract a better man because we look this way? Do we feel like we're going to feel better about ourselves because we feel this way, because we look this way? Do we feel like we're going to get better job opportunities because we look this way? So we really want to start exploring our why. And the more we can start looking at that, and we'll get more into this when I get into the solutions, but essentially when it comes down to it, the colorism, the light skin, the dark skin, the hair, I didn't even talk about the good hair, the nappy hair, because there's also, that was in the video with a woman who was sharing about how if she could change her hair texture, change her skin color, how much better her life would be. Like, that's painful to hear. So that means that every day of her life, she's walking through it feeling like she's disadvantaged, like she's already behind. And that is not how we as Black women should be moving because of how we look. And, we've fallen victim, essentially, as I mentioned before, to the prejudices of other people. So should we be looking more European? Should we be looking more Asian? We need to start understanding and becoming more aware of how we're showing up, what we're thinking about, and how we're feeling. And if we're internalizing these perceptions, does it create more opportunity for self-sabotage? And that self-sabotage can look like something like a little Kim, where, she's completely, in my view, destroying her body over time, making it more difficult for her to breathe, making it more difficult for her to see. Every time she's going under anesthesia, she's taking a lot of mind-altering drugs in order to have these surgeries. And, I've seen videos around even girls having to come back on planes with BBLs and the complications that happen from these surgeries. We're aware of at least the shows Botched, and a lot of the shows where a lot of these surgeries go wrong. I mean, poor Kanye West's mom, Donda West, died from complications or under the knife procedures. So these things can be deadly. These beauty pursuits are deadly in many ways. And I wanted to dive a little bit more deeply into my own personal experience, because I know this starts to inform many of your experiences and how we can start looking at why we feel this way about ourselves. And the first one I want to point to, particularly for me, was growing up in a Creole family. So I want to first describe what Creole is for people who aren't familiar with Louisiana Creole culture. Louisiana Creole culture is very much a mixed race culture. So essentially, particularly my family is Choctaw, and Choctaw are indigenous Americans. So they were not brought here from Africa. They are from this land. And these people mixed, of course, with a lot of the different cultures that came through Louisiana, the Spanish, the French, the Africans, so it became much more of a gumbo, if you will, a mescla, a mix of race. And in my studies around the 1800s, around Jim Crow, post-slavery, Creole people before then were considered their own group of people. We own land. Like, my family had its own city and settlement, the Rideau settlement. And we could go to schools, we could be educated, we could have businesses. And then post-slavery, all the Creole people became Black people. And so then of course, the Anglo culture got layered onto that. And the Creole people, because many of them had lighter skin, were better than the slaves. So this is essentially how that mindset began in sort of the Creole culture. And then that culture permeated to Texas when a lot of Louisiana people came out of the agrarian economy and moved to cities in East Texas. And my grandmother moved here to Houston from the Rito settlement, away from her family, and then started her own family. Yet, and many Creole people came to Third Ward and other parts of Houston to settle in other parts of East Texas, like Beaumont and Port Arthur. And then this is how sort of the Creole group continued to thrive. And even at my church, I went to a Black Catholic church, mostly Creole Catholics, and a lot of that culture persisted. That's why I make a really good gumbo. I make really good Creole food. And part of that culture, and part of sort of the negative aspect of that culture, is the colorism. And I remember growing up and being told that, I barely made the pretty test, we called it the brown paper bag test. So you had to be a brown paper bag color or lighter to be considered acceptable and pretty. And, I don't know if I ever was quite brown paper bag. So I was always kind of nervous if I made the pretty cut, but I always had long hair. So I had really long hair my whole life, like down my back. And that to me made me pretty enough in my community, in my view. And so, this is my own personal experience with the colorism and in my family. And my mom particularly looks very much like me, but her sister, she has 6 sisters. Many of them, some of them in my view look like her, but many of them were really fair skinned, really straight, fine hair. Some of them have green eyes, blue eyes. And so they look more like Caucasian or white. And so she felt really insecure about how she showed up in her family. So in many ways that made me really insecure about my beauty and or how I presented, because I didn't feel like I was good enough, because the same way with my mom, because I wasn't light skinned enough, or my eyes weren't light enough, or my hair wasn't straight enough. And I'm laughing because it's really absurd, but this is a reality in my family and my upbringing. And so I wanted to start off with that, because that, in my view, was my own personal experience. So I know that there are other people out there that may not be familiar with where this comes from in some Black communities. So that's where it comes from in my community. And, when I actually came out of high school and went to college, I had a relaxer, which means I put chemicals on my hair to actually straighten my hair, because I wanted to have more of that fine, pretty, straight hair. And then there was this movement in the early 2000s to like go natural. And there were like a small group of people that were doing it at the time. And so I was considering myself going natural. And so I ended up doing like a sew-in. It was my first sew-in. I remember I was like 21 years old. It was actually that picture I showed last week in New York. I did my first sew-in because I was going natural. And when I came back home from New York and Houston, me and my mom were taking down my braids, and we were not familiar with how to care for the hair post sew-in. So straight after we took my hair down, we washed my hair and my hair locked up. And this is a funny story, but not a funny story, because it was really traumatic, because we didn't realize that we could have just combed my hair out. And because there was so much dead hair from being in a sew-in for 2-3 months, like that's crazy to not have that awareness, but we didn't. So we didn't know I could just comb my hair out and it would be fine. So my hair was literally, like I told you guys, down my back. So at 21, I cut all my hair off. And this is actually how I went natural the first time. I don't think anyone knows this story, but this is actually when I went natural when I was in my early 20s. This is how and why. And I remember being at home and my mom, and I was sobbing all day because I felt like I would not be pretty anymore because I didn't have long hair. And I don't want to say that became true for me, but in many ways, I was not seen the same. I was not accepted the same because when I started to wear my hair natural, because then again, this was the early 2000s, it was not a trend. It was very avant-garde. So people would be yelling, "Hey, Jill Scott," like, "Hey, Macy Gray." People call me Macy Gray because I wore my hair natural and it was really short. And so a lot of my insecurities around my hair, the texture of my hair, the color of my skin really started to come to bear in my early 20s. And this is actually when I went to that job at I don't want to say the name, but I'll say it, at BCBG. And that's when I had that hair incident, and why it was so impactful when they told me that my hair in its curly state was inappropriate for the work environment, because I already had, on top of that, layered this internalized hate for myself and my curly hair and my short hair, because I didn't want it like that to begin with. I didn't want it like that. But I had no choice, because I thought that I had to cut all my hair off. So this is just how my hair grew out my head. And that's literally what I said to them, that this is how my hair grew out my head. But I couldn't even stand up for myself because I didn't fucking like it either. And so the colorism, the hairism, if that's what we can call it, is really real in terms of how we perceive ourselves as Black women and our beauty and how we show up in this world, especially in the work environment, especially in the professional environment, where that same hatred is mirrored, if you will. And I have to understand that too, like from a metaphysical perspective, like if I'm hating myself and this is resonating in my field, I hate my hair, I hate how I'm showing up, of course that's going to be reflected back to me, because that's actually how this reality works. So what does that mean? Then we have to shift our own fucking reality if we want the reality around us to change. And that took me damn near to today to really start to embody and figure out for myself. Though 10 years later, I did create my hair product company, and I did start to go farther on that journey around loving myself. Those were a part of my tenets. Those, I remember my hair product company, Defy All Odds, Deo, that wasn't even my hair product company. My motto was around own your identity, own how you look, own your beauty, own how you show up. I didn't own it at that time, but I was moving towards it. I was really moving towards it because I knew that there was a cycle within my own being, at least, that I needed to break around how I showed up, how I looked in my natural hair and my skin and my complexion and my gender, because there was so much self-hate in my own being. And, I always have to speak from my own personal experience, because, this is just, how it is. And if this is resonating with you guys, I want you guys to like this video. I want you guys to subscribe to my channel. Leave me a comment. Let me know how you're feeling, because this is really powerful conversation. And I don't want you to feel like you're alone in this, because you're not. I'm here with you. And when I continue to go along on this journey, this hair journey, this beauty journey, you guys, I'm going to finish telling the story, and then I'll get to more around the conversation around solutions. When I was going through that hair incident, in New York at PCBG, I ended up quitting that job just to finish the story and working at Bergdorf. You guys saw me go back to Bergdorf recently in New York, and I talked about that on a previous podcast. And then I decided to go to Harvard. And so, of course, in the community where I grew up in Third Ward, going to Harvard, is bougie as fuck. No one, especially from the South, you go to UT, you go to SMU. These are the Harvards of the South. Texas A&M. Maybe you can go to LSU or something like that, but no one's really going to Yankee Land. And so that's bougie, for where I come from in any community. Yet when I go to Harvard, you guys, I'm considered ratchet, even among the Black people. And that to me was really disconcerting and unnerving, because I didn't even really fit in with the Black people there. And I don't know if this resonates with other Black people that went to Harvard, but this was my experience. I can't even lie about it. And I was a president of the fucking African American Student Union at HBS. And I did volunteer with the Black Student Union at Kennedy School too, work with them. But at HBS, it was just on another level. The weirdness and the awkwardness of how Black people had to show up in that space, it was just awkward as fuck. And we do our best, and we continue to do our best. And I continue to work with ASU and other Black communities at Harvard and alumni groups for years. Yet the experience in and of itself was awkward as fuck because I just didn't even feel like I could be myself there and talk like this there. And so this is essentially just continuing, as I always do, elucidating and opening up conversation around how Black people are showing up in different Black spaces, especially Black spaces. How Black people are showing up in Black spaces. It's strange that we continue, even in our own groups, even in our own communities, to divide, to dissect, to judge, to ridicule in our own families. Okay? Even in my own family, I felt this energy. So of course, as I would go out into the world, it would continue to be reflected upon me at Harvard, in New York, in school, because this was my own reality that I carried around with me. You know what they say, you take you wherever you go. You can't escape you. So that brings me then to our solutions. We didn't really articulate the problem. I didn't articulate the problem for a long time and then shared my own personal experience. And then moving into sort of the solution around this is understanding what beauty means to you. What does beauty mean to me? What are my standards? And I want to speak to it from a physical perspective too. I'm going to go ahead and challenge my goddamn self. For me, someone that's beautiful, is brown skin, pretty hair, nice smile, curvy body, like at least 5'6". And that to me, like from a physical perspective, is beauty. And maybe that is me now because I've really started to love me. I'm 5'7" though. But it's like I really have come to love myself, but at the same time, this is what I see as beautiful. And for you, I really want to encourage you to do the same, to really start to explore, what do I see as beauty? And if you're like the woman that we showed in the TikTok and you're seeing someone else as more beautiful than you are, ask yourself why. What stories in your life, what experience in your life, what narratives are you telling yourself that make you think that someone else is more beautiful than you are? Because I have to go through that exploration myself. And I've even seen it like from celebrities. They'll talk about on Instagram how they'll go on Instagram and they'll get jealous or envious or they'll feel insecure when they see other women. Why? Why? And I even have to ask myself this when I see someone that I think looks, good. Like, what do I like about that? What can I do in my own being that can make me feel like this? It's the next piece for me, because I don't want to ever have to covet someone else like that. We already talk about this in the Bible. I know a lot of y'all Black women out there know the Bible. I know y'all know God's word. So why are we coveting someone else's look? Why not just love our own and just love and celebrate someone else's and love hers? Not covet it, not be envious of it, not be jealous of it, not hate her for it, not ignore her for it, treat her like shit for it, put her down. Because we've all been on both sides. Point blank. We've all been on both sides. So when you start to understand what are your beauty standards, why are these your beauty standards, then the next piece would be to sort of affirm your own self, affirm your own beauty, Like I said, I started to look at my own self and see, wow, I really love myself and how I show up. And then I start to see that reflected in other people. So that's beautiful. That's the beauty standard to me. It's me, as it should be, because everything's coming from me, as everything's coming from you. So as you continue to affirm yourself and your own beauty, then you can reprogram your mind on what beautiful means. Okay? And that's what I'm saying. And then understand, too, if you're going and moving out in the world and you're feeling like you're getting feedback from other people that doesn't reflect how you feel, wait. Be patient. And that waiting part is very fucking painful. I have to say, and I have to admit, that having to wait for what's happening in your mind to manifest into form and reality and be reflected to you can sometimes take years. Depending on how deep that program is, depending on how deep that wound is within you. And I don't think that people understand this manifestation game. Everybody's fucking talking about manifesting on Instagram, and it really pisses me off because people don't understand what it takes to bring what you want from your thoughts into form. It takes work, emotional work, spiritual work, energy clearing, energy healing, cutting shit out of your life, sacrifices, love, deep love for that which you don't even see. Come on now. You want it that bad. You got to wait for it. You have to love yourself through it. You have to love yourself when no one around you loves you. Do you know what that feels like? It is painful sometimes. It is scary sometimes. It's frustrating sometimes for people not to see you how you see you. But you have to wake up every day and do the work. And the work looks like this, because I'm gonna go ahead and tell y'all now. If you like this, if this resonates with you, I want you to go ahead and like this, like this. I want you to subscribe to my channel. I want you guys to leave me a comment. I want to hear from y'all in the chat. It's really quiet today, so I'm just gonna keep going because I'm really feeling this, but I'm gonna keep going. But if you are really getting to this point where you want to do this work, you're ready to do this work, I want you to have a look at this. Okay? So this is essentially what's happening for most of us women, especially. And I share this picture because it's a really powerful metaphor, if you will, of what our little girl, our inner child is feeling and doing right now, hiding from us. Because it's not safe. It ain't 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 safe. When we're hating ourselves, when we're judging ourselves, when we're putting ourselves down, when we're calling ourselves fat, when we're calling ourselves dumb, I'm so stupid, I did that. She goes deeper and deeper in that cave. She's not loved. She's not seen. She's not heard. She's not accepted the way she is. And that is what's happening to us. This is why we self-sabotage. This is why we get plastic surgery. This is why we pay hundreds of thousands of dollars. I would say 80,000 the average. Black women, different. A lot of money to look better, more beautiful, more acceptable, more professional. And she suffers. Our inner child suffers. Again, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with getting beautiful, getting dolled up. Look at me right now. I keep messing with my hair. I love to be beautiful. I love to be dolled up. But am I loving myself in the process? Are you loving yourself in the process? Are you pointing out more things that need to be fixed? Are you criticizing more about yourself? I understand because I do it too. I have my moments. I'm certainly in one of those seasons right now, very critical of myself. And I'm doing my best to have grace and love and care through the process. It ain't easy. In addition to having that love and care and grace, we need to be doing deeper work, what I call energy work. And you can talk to me a little bit more about that if you want to engage in that energy work. Feel free to shoot me a DM in the comments. I don't care how it comes at me. But we need to be working on our soul beauty, the beauty of our soul, the inner workings of our soul, of our light body, our emotional body, our spiritual body, our mental body, the unseen, the metaphysical aspects of ourselves. And that work is actually what begins to shift the external in how we show up. Because we're not going to necessarily be able to sustain the beautiful body, the beautiful skin, the beautiful hair, if our emotions and our energy doesn't match. We're not going to be able to even attract the good foods and the good diets if we're not actually caring about what we put in our body. Hence why people go for Ozempic or other fast, track things that are not sustainable, quick fixes. And once you are able to start to shift that energy, what I say, change your energy, change your life. Change your energy, change your life. And in order to change your energy, there's a few techniques that I use. And this one I really want to share with you all. I'm going to gift you all with this technique. And it's a very powerful one because it involves you connecting very directly to you. And I would say this, it goes like this. So in the morning when you wake up, you got to brush your teeth, wash your face, do all the things in the mirror where you're really kind of critiquing all the little aspects of yourself. I want you to stop at some point in that process, look yourself in the eye. And 3 times, I want you to repeat this. I want you to say, I love myself. I am me. I love myself. I am me. I love myself. I am me. And you look yourself in the eye and you say that over and over. There will be some times when I first started to do this, it was a couple years ago, I would put on a song and the whole song, I would just dance and I would say, I love myself. I am me. I love myself. I am me. Sometimes I'll look at myself and say that I'd be crying. Because maybe I felt good about it. Maybe I didn't feel good about it. But the more that you start to pour that very intentional, very direct love into yourself, you will start to see your life change, your view of yourself change, and then your external world and your body and your physical being will change with it. Because what I say, change your energy, change your life. And if that's what you desire, that is certainly what I desired. I would speak over my body all the time. And I've talked about this in previous episodes. I'd be like, I want my perky plump breasts. I want flat toned abs. I want big fat ass, thick thighs, Like, and I'll go down my body in the shower. This was before I had my trainer. Well before, years before. And then I was able to bring in my trainer and then bring in my nutritionist. And then 15 months later, I'm taking bikini pics on the Hawaii beach, feeling good about myself because I love myself first. I love myself first. It has to start with that love for yourself. It has to start with that love for your beingness, for how you show up, for how you look, for what your hair look like, what your skin color look like, what your body look like. And anything can change from there. Absolutely anything. So I just kind of want to start to wrap it up there. I really thank you all so much for the love. I see the hearts and the waves and the stuff in the comments. And I see you all too out here just viewing me. And This has been such a powerful episode, you guys. I was kind of really nervous going into this one because I felt like it's hard. It's hard. It's hard as a Black woman to talk about these things that plague us, that make us uncomfortable, that we really don't want to talk about, that bring up uncomfortable feelings. Yet we have to be uncomfortable to be comfortable, to get comfortable. The world is on fire, literally, right now. There's fires in LA. There's fires in Gaza. There's fires who else knows where. There's fire in our own being. We got to put out the fires. We got to put out the wars in our own being first. When we're at war with ourselves, what I say, as within, so without. What they say, as within, so without. If we're at war with ourselves, if we're hating ourselves, if we're hating what we look like, if we're hating how we show up, if we're competing with how other people are based on our looks, what do you think the other aspects of our life are going to look like? War, violence, competition. So I want us to sit with that. And again, if this resonates with you guys, like this video, subscribe to my channel, DM me, leave a comment. I really want to hear from you. And if you really want to start to get your energy up, I'm going to say it in my outro, but certainly check out my website, erinpatten.com. Follow me across social media at I am Erin Patten. It's been such a pleasure to be with you all today, to share this wisdom with you all today, my own personal experiences with you all today. This is what I came to this planet for, okay? And I will continue to do this work. I love this work, and I love you. Thank you so much. Peace. Did you really love this episode of the Meta Business Millennial Podcast? Well, I am honored, and I appreciate you subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends, because your feedback allows us to co-create more enlightened conversations. And if you're interested in growing your soul now, head over to my website, erinpatten.com, to find all the show notes, links, and free resources to get your energy activated today. In the meantime, stay bright, my friends. Much love and light. Peace.